All right, you've got to hear this one. We're about to dive into the preface of a book by Alexander Nevzorov, and I'm telling you, it might just be the wildest opening to any book you've ever come across. It's got everything: organized crime, lectures with life or death stakes, and a view of science that is, well, deeply cynical.
So, the author just throws this question at you right from the start. It's blunt, it's kind of gross, and honestly, it sets the tone perfectly. He's taking all of human achievement and reframing it, not as some glorious triumph, but as this weird biological fluke that he's about to explain. And his explanation? It starts in a very, very strange place.
You heard me right. That's not a metaphor. The entire reason this book even exists, the whole jumping off point for this wild story, is a Boston crime boss in prison who literally starts eating a book about the human brain.
So this dawn, he gets a children's book on neuroscience from the prison library. At first, he just tears out the title page and preface and eats them. But then, something happens. He starts actually reading the torn-up scraps, and he gets completely hooked, just forgetting all about his criminal empire, his addictions, everything. A little while later, he dies, with this look of total astonishment on his face, still clutching those shredded pages.
The Don's bizarre death really makes an impact. In his will, he actually demands that his entire crime family get educated on the very same topics that obsessed him at the end. And this is where our author, Nevzorov, comes into the story. He gets hired for a job that has some, let's just say, very unusual terms. The terms of the deal were simple and deadly. He had to teach neuroscience to about 100 gangsters, but, and this is the important part, he was absolutely forbidden from using any scientific language. No jargon, no Latin, nothing. If he bored them, they'd shoot him, just like they shot the two professors who tried before him. The only silver lining? A massive paycheck.
So this is the scene he walks into. The professor from Bologna, the specialist from Amsterdam, they both met a pretty grim end because they used words like transcendental. So what does our author bring for protection? Not a bulletproof vest, he brings his own solution. 2 huge anti-cult revolvers. He just calmly walks up to the lectern and places them right on top before he even says a word.
With 2 guns on the table and 100 mobsters staring him down, this is his opening line. And it is an absolute masterstroke. See, he's not talking down to them like some stuffy academic. He's meeting them right where they are, on their own turf, implying they all share the same cynical way of looking at the world. And it works. After a beat of just stunned silence, the whole family starts applauding. He's got them.
Now that he has their full attention, the author launches into his core philosophy. And he doesn't talk about science as this noble search for truth. Nope. He frames it as a kind of intellectual heist.
He describes scientists as gnomes. You know, these hardworking little creatures who are just endlessly digging away in their labs and archives, pulling up the raw material of knowledge, the facts. He says he respects their hard work, but he argues that's where their role ends. They're just the miners.
And the analogy just keeps going. On one side, you have the scientists doing all the dangerous, dirty grunt work. And on the other side, you have the thinker, who's basically a jewel thief. His job is to crack the safe where all the facts are kept, steal them, and then shape that raw scientific ore into something truly valuable, ideas. So in this worldview, the person who discovers something has no claim to it. The whole point is, once a fact has been dug up, the scientist's work is over. They get no say in how that fact is used or interpreted. For a scientist to try and explain their own findings is, as the author puts it, like a diamond miner trying to tell a socialite how to wear her necklace. It's simply not their gnome's business. Okay, so now that he's laid out this wild worldview, the author finally turns to the 2 big things that Don was obsessed with, the brain and the whole idea of genius. And his take on both is, to put it lightly, not very flattering. He starts with a really simple observation, something his audience of mobsters would immediately get. The most critical organ we possess, our brain, is located right behind the forehead. I mean, it's a perfect target. To him, this isn't some elegant design. It's a massive, clumsy evolutionary mistake. He argues this is just how evolution works. It throws together some flawed prototype, some dreck, as he calls it, and then it just spends millions of years patching it up and adding little fixes. But that original, clunky foundation, it never really goes away. And the human brain, he tells them, is no different. It's just new layers of fixes, built on top of a very primitive, unimpressive core. This leads him to the idea of genius.
And he presents it not as something to aspire to, but as a direct insult to everybody else. He argues that the second we label someone like Einstein a genius, what we're really doing is labeling the rest of humanity as intellectually second-rate in comparison. He puts the question right to them, and really to all of us. If guys like Newton or Feynman represent the absolute peak of human intelligence, does that make the average person, well, feeble-minded? It's a really uncomfortable thought, and it's designed to make his audience question this whole idea of a mental food chain. When you get down to it, the concept of genius just carves humanity into two ridiculously unequal groups. This tiny, almost mythical 1% of geniuses, and then, well, everyone else. And this, the author suggests, is why their Don, a man of incredible power and pride, just couldn't stomach a book that casually placed him in the 99%. So the lectures wrap up, the author gets paid his astronomical fee and leaves. But the story is not over, not by a long shot, because his cynical lessons about science and human nature, they didn't just go in one ear and out the other. The family really took his ideas to heart.
The author notes that his course was, in a way, a huge success. The family definitely drew their own conclusions from his lectures. And then, just a few weeks later, a truly bizarre crime goes down in a nearby town.
The victim was a school principal who had apparently been bad-mouthing Darwin and evolution. His body was literally sawn in two, and in this surreal detail reported by witnesses, his legs supposedly just got up and ran off into a crowd, while his upper torso stayed conscious long enough to give instructions to the undertaker before finally dying. Just insane.
But here's the detail that ties it all back. The smoking gun. Literally. The ballistics report from the crime scene. The bullets they recovered were .36 caliber, the exact same type used in the author's antique Colt revolvers. The family had been so impressed by his lecture props that they went out and got their own matching set.
And that's what brings this whole crazy story full circle. The author took this entire experience, the dead Don, the armed audience, the cynical lectures, the horrifying murder, and he turned it into the very preface we've just been talking about. This whole story is the setup for the rest of his book.
And the author ends his preface with this line. It's like a final, defiant shrug at the reader. No apologies, no hand-holding. It perfectly captures the aggressive, take-it-or-leave-it tone of his whole project. And that really leaves us with this one final thought. This whole preface isn't just some shocking story to grab your attention. It's a demonstration. It shows what can happen when these abstract, cynical ideas about human nature are taken up by people who are not at all afraid to act on them, literally and violently. It's one hell of an unsettling start to a book about the mind.